And so if you notice here, we have one question from Adam, and this is about transitioning from middle school to junior high. And so he's asking, does a transition like that, if a student's having trouble transitioning from middle school to junior high, does that reflect a struggle academically that persists throughout their high school career, or is it just in their first year? And so what we actually find in this particular situation is that students do generally have a bit of a dip in academic achievement when they're transitioning from, for example, an elementary school to a high school. We do tend to see a bit of an academic dip there where they may be struggling with grades just a little bit. We also see a dip in academics around the time of adolescence. And so for a lot of kids, in fact, most kids, the transition from middle school to high school and the transition into adolescence really happens about the same time. So those two milestones really coincide with each other. And what we find is in that most situations, kids can recover pretty much by the end of high school. Now, depending on that transition, when exactly they transition, what grade, what age, what point they are in that puberty change, we can see them adjusting earlier, and we can see that sometimes it does prolong to the end of high school. But generally, they do recover within that time frame. So it might take them a couple of years to adjust. There's a lot of factors at play here, and I think that these are really, really key that we can't overlook. So for example, we have to consider factors like their support system at home. Do they have a support system at home? What does that look like? Do they have parents? Are they, from a very loving, open, supportive family? Who's at home? Do they have an extended family who's supportive? Are they talking about the transition from middle school to high school? Are they talking about the struggles that the adolescent's having? Are they talking about pubertal changes? What's going on here? Also, the support at school is important. Are they talking to school counselors? Do they have guidance counselors? Are they utilizing that resource? And are the school resources available and able to provide support for those students? Are they able to kind of say, hey, this particular student's having issues, let's try to address that? Is there bullying going on? What's the deal? So relationship with peers is important. Do they have a strong group of friends? Do they have a network of peers who are helping them with that transition? What does the family and community situation look like? And what is the relationship with the parents? So parental relationship is very important at this stage, because if the child isn't receiving support at home, if the child's not receiving support at school, then that child very likely is going to struggle more than someone who has parents who are very supportive in a school system with the resources to be able to support them in this transition. It's very deep in the literature. There's a lot of literature about this issue with transitioning from, for example, middle school to high school. There's a lot of literature on how kids can struggle with this, and how, because this coincides with puberty, we see issues with how they're viewing their body. We see, issues with students who might be involved in promiscuous behavior or risky behavior. And again, it's very dependent upon what kind of systems they have in place, what kind of support systems. And then finally, one issue that I do want to kind of bring up is how are academics viewed? How are they viewed by the kid? How are they viewed by the parents? If the parents are placing a really high value on academics, you may see, and the teenager as well places a high value in academics, you might actually see less of a academic dip here. You might see less of a struggle because that's a really, very highly valued thing that the adolescent is working with. and they, say, I want to go to college and I want to do well, I want to be successful, and the parents are also backing them up, you might find that, they don't have quite as bad of a struggle, or they are working ways around that. And finally, on top of all of this, is what kind of coping strategies and skills does the adolescent have? If they're able to recover quickly from, social or emotional or academic struggles, if they are confident in themselves and confident in their ability to manage the stress, then typically they will do better. Um, and again, that kind of stems from support systems at home. Are they being provided that kind of information and skills to help them as they continue to grow and change? So that was a pretty, condensed question. So if you have any additional questions or you'd like to discuss it further, please feel free to email me, and I am happy to talk more about it. But if not, we will see you next week with the next um, live lecture question.